Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I am purposefully off to the side here today because in today's video I'm going to be showing a bracket style showdown of the 12 baking / cooking competition romances I've read to determine which romance incorporates food, baking and or cooking competition into the narrative. Mostly the focus is going to be talking about how the cooking and baking elements and the competition aspect was presented and how it was balanced with the romance. And we're going to determine by the end which is the best baking competition romance by the end. The first round of the competition is going to be teams of 3, so these 3 will duke it out, and then the winners of those will fight against each other to determine the winner. I made this cute bracket graphic and I'll show the book titles and where they are located and which round we are talking about first. So round 1, I have the 12 books that I have read in this cup on little slips of paper to determine who is going up against who. So round 1, first fight is between Paris Daillencourt is about to crumble. Then we have The Romance Recipe by Ruby Barrett. I should maybe go like this so you can see what I'm talking about. And Chef's Kiss by TJ Alexander. Paris Daillencourt is about to crumble is about Paris. It is a single point of view book from Paris's perspective, and he's an incredibly anxious person whose best friend signs him up for a cooking, basically a show inspired by Great British Bake Off. And another contestant on the show named Tarek and him start a little flirtation or romance on the show. Then we have The Romance Recipe by Ruby Barrett. This is about Amy and Sophie, and Amy is the owner of a restaurant and Sophie is the head chef, and this is a sapphic romance between the two of them. And their whole shtick is that the restaurant isn't doing super well, so Amy is trying to get on a cooking show featuring the restaurant to gain popularity and needs Sophie's help to come up with a new menu, essentially. Chef's Kiss is about 2 characters, Simone and Ray, and it's kind of a similar situation, although Simone is like the head chef of the restaurant and Ray is the kitchen manager. And the way that the competition aspect goes about in this book is that Simone and Ray have to work together on a YouTube series featuring them cooking, baking, brewing beer, all that stuff to also gain popularity. Throughout the course of the novel, Ray comes out as non-binary, and it's a whole thing apparently at this kitchen. So we've got our 3 contenders. This is actually a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be because I have said in the past that Paris Daillencourt is one of the best incorporations of the baking show aspect I have ever read, but Chef's Kiss has the baking aspect in terms of YouTube and how the 2 characters have to film together, so they're working on a project together. So there's something to be said about 2 characters who are competing against each other, like Tarek and Paris are, versus 2 characters who have to work together on a project, like Simone and Ray. I really thought I was going to choose Paris Daillencourt for this, but I think I'm going to do Chef's Kiss as the winner because I just think the YouTube element was a little bit more interesting than the Great British Bake Off kind of knockoff that we have going on in Paris Daillencourt. But I think it works better in Chef's Kiss and in terms of how it bolsters the romance. Chef's Kiss is the winner. Right, Baking Me Crazy by Karla Sorenson. We have Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera. Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. All right. So let's start with Love and Other Disasters. Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly is similar to Paris Daillencourt in that Dahlia and London are two contestants on a cooking show, kind of based on Great British Bake Off, but it's set in the United States. So they are competing against each other, and in a similar situation, London comes out as non-binary on the show, and it's a whole kerfuffle. Baking Me Crazy doesn't have necessarily a cooking show element to it. This is about Levi and Jocelyn, who have been best friends forever, and Jocelyn is disabled and is a wheelchair user and works in a bakery. I will say that the baking and the bakery elements of this book is pretty slim, so this one probably is going to get knocked out fairly quickly here. Mangoes and Mistletoe is a holiday special version of the Great British Bake Off, where the two characters, Sully and Kiskia, are on a baking holiday special show set in Scotland, but they are contestants on the show. But they have to work together on the show as a team to compete in the competition, and so people are eliminated or win as a couple. As far as the competition baking elements, the one that's sticking out to me that works the best is either Love and Other Disasters or Mangoes and Mistletoe. I think I'm going to go ahead and say Mangoes and Mistletoe is the winner here, simply because the two have to work together, and I think that's a better recipe for romance success, is when the main couple has to work together instead of compete against each other, in my opinion. This is all just in good fun. Accidentally Engaged by Farah. Heron? Sweet Mess by Jayci Lee. And Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. Let's start with A Sweet Mess. A Sweet Mess is about Aubrey and Landon, and Aubrey owns her own bakery, and she does requests, custom cakes, and she makes a franken-cake for a child's birthday party and accidentally serves it to a food critic, Langdon, who tears it to shreds. After the whole debacle and people start tearing her bakery apart because of this bad review, Langdon feels kind of bad about this, but he decides not to take down the review, but instead invite Aubrey onto a cooking show that he is producing. She can win back public opinion about her bakery. Simmer Down is about Nikki and Callum, and they own competing food trucks that are competing for the same spot on the beach in Hawaii, essentially. So they decide to join a food truck food competition, and the winner of the competition gets that spot on the beach. Accidentally Engaged is about Rena and Nadim, and Rena wants to pursue baking as a career option and decides to join a cooking competition that's on YouTube, but you have to be in a relationship, or she said that she was in a relationship to be able to compete, so she hires, or she and Nadim kind of form a relationship of convenience, kind of a fake dating scenario for her to teach him how to bake on a YouTube video to, compete in the competition. As far as the show, the competition elements, I will say Simmer Down has probably the weakest in this. Simmer Down, the competition happens off page, so I'm gonna knock that one off right away. Again, I'm gonna probably do Accidentally Engaged as the winner, not only because I enjoyed this the most out of the three in terms of my personal enjoyment, but it's again about a couple working together to achieve a similar goal with the baking competition. And this one's also just really cute. Like, she teaches him how to do a sourdough starter, and he's like fascinated by this. So I think the cooking, baking elements in Accidentally Engaged are just a little bit more charming as well. So I'm thinking this one's the winner for me. All right, that leaves Digging Up Love by Chandra Blumberg, Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley, and Battle Royal by Lucy Parker. Battle Royal is about Sylvie and Dominic. And so Sylvie and Dominic are on a baking competition as judges, not necessarily as contestants. Sylvie was a contestant on the show years before, and she dumped a whole bunch of food on Dominic as her swan song, which is kind of what got her kicked off the show. But now that the show is past, she is returning as a judge, and Sylvie and Dominic also own competing bakeries that are literally across the street from each other. On top of all of that, they are competing to make the cake for the royal wedding that is going to be happening in this book. It's a fake royal family, and there's going to be a royal wedding that's happening. So they are trying to compete to win the bid to do that wedding cake. Fake It Till You Bake It is about Donovan and Jada, and Donovan is an NFL player who owns a bakery to try and be a little bit more sustainable for his lifetime financial success because he can't play in the NFL forever. And Jada comes in and is kind of a mess, hasn't really figured out what she wants to do with life, but she does not like his bakery. She thinks it's a little uptight and uninviting, and ends up having to work there because she's going to be cut off from her trust fund. Digging Up Love is about Quentin and Alicia, and Alicia is an amateur baker who wants to open her own bakery in Chicago, but she is stuck in a rural town helping her elderly grandfather run his barbecue restaurant. And Quentin is a paleontologist from the University of Chicago, I believe, and dinosaur bones are discovered in Alicia's grandparents' backyard, and Quentin comes out to do the dig there. As far as baking and cooking incorporation, digging and like a competition element, Digging Up Love has to be eliminated right away because the baking is really a subplot. Alicia does bake, but there's no competition element. Fake It Till You Bake It also, I think I have to eliminate right away, sadly, because there's no competition element. There's a lot more baking happening. However, there's no competition elements. The two of them have to work together in terms of like boss-employee type thing, but not in the same way as the other books. So in terms of competition baking show and how that is incorporated, I'd say Battle Royal is actually the winner here because we have a couple layers of baking and competition. Round 2 is Mangoes and Mistletoe versus Chef's Kiss. Oh boy. Now, I'm really trying not to let my personal enjoyment of these books color my thoughts and opinions. Both of these books are set in such a way that the characters have to work together to achieve the ultimate goal, which I think as a romance is the best way to form a romantic relationship, is, you know, two characters having to work together. In Mangoes and Mistletoe, they are actually on a baking show a la Great British Bake Off, and Chef's Kiss, they are working together to create YouTube videos. So it's not necessarily a competition, but they do have to work together to create baking videos to get the restaurant publicity. I can't believe this is an interesting pairing. I honestly don't know what to say, but in terms of working together and the baking competition elements, I gotta go with Mangoes and Mistletoe as the winner here. Wow, I expected this video to go in a completely different direction, but here we are. Mangoes and Mistletoe is the winner of round 2 over here. That leaves Accidentally Engaged and Battle Royal. oh my gosh. In terms of competition and the competitive nature, Battle Royal has to win. To be honest, in terms of this has nothing to do with the video, but in terms of my personal enjoyment, I enjoyed Accidentally Engaged much, much better than Battle Royal. I don't think Battle Royal was bad, it just didn't, it was like a 3-star read. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was good, but it wasn't stupendous. So with this video concept though, Battle Royal has to be the winner for this round, which leaves Mangoes and Mistletoe versus Battle Royal. Now, Mangoes and Mistletoe, to be fair, is a novella. So it is significantly shorter than Battle Royal, which is a full-length novel. So I'm not going to dock points in my head from Mangoes and Mistletoe because it doesn't have quite as much competition in it as Battle Royal, because they simply is just more page time to develop and have more intricate plots happening in this one. But based on everything I've said so far, Battle Royal, Sylvie and Dominic are competing against each other to get the bid for the cake for the royal wedding. So there is an element of conflict there, whereas in Mangoes and Mistletoe, the two characters are on a team, working together, and they win or lose as a team. So for that reason, let's say Mangoes and Mistletoe is the ultimate winner here of the baking romance showdown. Mangoes and Mistletoe is the winner in terms of how this bracket ended up working. If you were to ask me at the beginning of this video how I thought this would turn out, I honestly would have said Paris Daillencourt would win, simply because I think the integration, there was so much of the show incorporated into the book. But based on my criteria of how not only is the show or the baking or the cooking competition aspect in the book itself, like how much page time it gets, but how it props up and balances with the romance and brings the couple together, this is it. Mangoes and Mistletoe is the winner. Anyway, this video was just for fun, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun coming up with this concept, reading all these books, and putting them head to head. What is your favorite baking / cooking competition romance? Because clearly this is a trend in romance and traditionally published romances right now, and I'm enjoying my time reading this type of story. What did you think of this video? I would love to know as well, and I will see you all soon in another video of mine very soon. Bye.